Good morning. What a beautiful day. Good to see you all. The title of the talk is Bring More Love into Your Life. An alternate title might be How to Have a More Abundant Life. Because to me, the way I would define an abundant life is not more money, power, more popularity, even better health, although that's important. But all those are fine and balanced. All those things are okay. They're all part of an abundant life. But to me, without a great deal of love in your life, all the others kind of pale. It's nice to be financially okay and healthy and, liked and all that. But if you don't have true love in your life, I don't know if I would define life as an abundant life. So it's bringing more love in your life today, which is very practical talk and very practical approach today. But it could also be called a more abundant life. So take your pick, whichever one you want. And the whole, if we were going to spend years on abundant life, I basically would have you study this, my Spiritual Keys book. And it said, my Spiritual Keys book is for what? A more abundant life. And the back, it says, bring the power of God's love more fully into your life. So this entire book, The Spiritual Keys for a More Abundant Life, would actually be a good book to study to bring more love in your life. But that's a pretty big topic for an hour talk. So I went through all the keys, 40 or 50 keys, whatever, and it really came to me. I felt like I was giving this talk when I started wondering about what to talk about, and it just came to me, so I'm very grateful for that. I picked out 4 distinct keys out of the entire book. And as I started looking at them, I was actually pleasantly surprised how tightly they fit together, how beautifully these 4 particular keys, and I can cover 4 keys in an hour, really reinforce one another's. They all have a thread, a common thread that runs through them. So I hope this will be interesting. Most of you are familiar with these keys, but this might be a different way of combining them. And if you really understand my keys book, you realize the keys are all one ball, one big ball of consciousness and teachings, but we break them down into individual keys so we can understand them. But these 4 keys I'm going to share today really fit tightly together, and they all are very useful, powerful, maybe you might say, and bring more love in your life. So I'm really excited about sharing this. It'll be stuff most of you are familiar with, that are my students, but you'll see it, I think, in a different way, and it'll show you how these 4 keys are really closely related. They all have the same thing in common. If you want more love in life, you have a choice. Basically, it's binary. You sit around in your home, office, work, walk through stores, and you just wait for love to fall in your lap. And how's that work? Sometimes it works, but it's kind of random. The way God has set things up down here, and His grace will guarantee you, if you follow these principles I'm going to share today, His grace will guarantee love will come into your life. And I'll get into some of the details of that. The principle is based on the first key I'm going to share, and the other 3 have the same principle, which I think I can share with you today and make it more obvious. The first key I want to share is give love first. And the idea of doing something first, being proactive, is the key is the real glue that ties these 4 keys together. Rather than just hoping love will come in, somebody will knock on your door and bring love to you, God has set things up that if you're proactive and you do something first, His grace will guarantee love comes to you. It's really quite stunning. This is a very similar principle of the Bible, in the Bible, where it says, draw close to God. It says, draw nigh to God. Most people don't know what the word nigh is. Draw close or draw nigh to God first, and then He will draw close or draw nigh to you. And God's not playing hard to get, but He doesn't want to violate our free will. So He's our silent partner. But if we reach out to Him first and show we're interested in a relationship, he will respond. So all four of these keys have that thread in common. That's the most important thread. To be proactive, to give love first, and each key is giving love in a slightly different form. And God's grace will absolutely guarantee love will come back. So let me get started with that. And to get love into your life, imagine love is like breathing. When I breathe in, and I breathe out. I breathe in, I breathe out. It's a natural thing you're all familiar with, or you wouldn't be watching today. You're all skilled at it. We want to bring love into our life. That's the purpose of today's discussion. But we also need to give love out. So love is like breathing. We need to learn to both give love first, is what God's suggesting, and then breathe love in. So love in our life is not one way, giving or receiving. They tie together beautifully. God's grace will guarantee, and these keys will show you, if you give out, breathe out love, it will come back. It's very similar to breathing. And the more love you can breathe in and receive, does it make sense? You have more to give. And it builds, like breathing in and out. So, all right, the first key is give love first. It's in the Keys book. Most of you are familiar with it. If you seek love, first give love. That's the cornerstone of that particular key. And this truly works. But there's some things that I need to explain. If you give love in some form or fashion, through kindness, through respect, through listening, through a deed, through an action, through gift, whatever way you give the love, through respect, which I'll talk about later, God's grace guarantees it will come back. But it will not necessarily come back from the one you give it to. If there's somebody you admire, you're grateful for, and you want more of a relationship with, a loving relationship, even platonic, but loving, if you give love to that person, there is not a guarantee. This is not a guarantee love will come from that person. And why not? For God's grace to guarantee that that particular person would return the love, God would have to violate that person's free will. And then, of course, it wouldn't be real love, it'd be polluted somehow. So God will not guarantee if you give love to a person A, that person A, in some way, shape, or form, will give love back. So that's the first thing we need to understand. However, if your goal is love and you're a little bit more relaxed about the type of love or where it comes from, God's grace does guarantee it may come back. It might come from person B, or some stranger, or a person you work with, or somebody you hadn't given much attention to. So the love will come back, but you can see why God will not guarantee it will come from a particular person, because he will not violate their free will. So that's one little parameter. So we're wanting love, but if we're too picky on how it comes back, that defeats the purpose. We want love, and love in any form is a beautiful thing. Love from anybody or in any form adds abundance to our life. So we need to surrender if it comes back from a particular person. But if you keep giving love to somebody you feel like giving love to through gifts, kindness, respect, a kind word, listening, whatever form of love you give, it's something that makes you happy, it's something you want to do, that's fine. The love will come back. It just may come back in a different form. The second thing, if you want a certain type of love, and I have an example of this in a moment. If you want a certain type of love, say romantic love, and you give love to somebody and you hope it comes back romantic, or maybe it comes back in a good friendship, or better co-working at work, or a better neighbor, whatever type of love you want back. God's grace does not guarantee it will come back in the form you're asking for, but it will come back. So this principle and all four of these keys If you give love first, you're proactive, you breathe out first, the love will come back, but you have to surrender the particular way it comes back and where it comes back from. But if you just want love, love in any form, like I said, is beautiful. And it may come back in a form that surprises you, that is actually something you want more than what you thought you wanted. God probably knows the type of love and the direction the love comes from that would bless you more than I think we know. He knows us better than we know ourselves. So you might think you need love from a certain person in a certain way, where he knows you'll actually be happier and more fully blessed that comes from a different person or a different situation in a different form. So if you can kind of keep loose about that and not too clingy to the way it comes back and from where it comes back, it truly will come back. Everything down here is programmed for this to work. God truly wants us to love our neighbor as ourselves, to give love, for praying for other people. When we pray for other people, he knows what the person needs before we pray. But often he'll hold back a blessing to see if his other children, one of us, care enough about one of his other children, which is what he wants, that we love each other. He'll hold back a blessing sometimes until we give love through a prayer. So I hope that's clear. So give love first. That's pretty much the fundamental principle of today's discussion. We want to be proactive. I've got an example of somebody I've known for years, actually a student, somebody I love. She's the wife of a husband who's also a student, and I want to share an example of this. Now, this came back in this particular example from the person she wanted the love from, her husband, and it came back in the exact form she wanted. So just because it may not, it also may. If you give love to a person, it may come back from that person. I just wanted to caution that it's not a guarantee. So this is kind of the perfect example. This person, this lady who I love, loves her husband very much, and the husband loves her very much. But it's one thing to love, and it's another to demonstrate the love, to share the love. And a lot of people love each other, but it stays bottled up inside. But when you can demonstrate love and actually share it through gift, respect, doing something nice for them, actually make it actionable and not just keep it bottled up in your heart, it really changes everything. And that's the principle today also. So years and years ago, she was in a week-long Spirit Week class. We used to do it in our log cabins. And she was talking about she wanted more affection from her husband. There's no doubt she loved her husband, but she wanted just good affection. You know, a touch, a smile, a kiss, a hug throughout the day, good, clean fun, nothing weird there. That's something that was her love language. And although her husband loved her, that's what really spoke to her heart, to have some daily affection, a touch, a glance, a hug, a smile, that type of stuff, which is beautiful. And at the time, this was many years ago, I got a very strong feeling and a knowingness that she was not ready for much of my opinion at that particular time. She was talking and venting and sharing, and I was wanting to help, but I knew she was not open at that particular time. I think I tried, but she was more interested in talking than listening. So I just followed away. And I knew that Heavenly Father would open it up again if it was important and if I was supposed to be involved. Years later, she was in my home at a winter class in my home, a small group, and the same topic came up, and it was very clear to me that she was now receptive. She'd reached a point she was willing to listen. So I mentored her in that class and on the phone and in other ways outside of class. And basically I suggested to her that if she had an inner communication with Prophet, to every day pray and ask Prophet me, maybe you a bit, ask Prophet me on the inner for ways to demonstrate. She loved her husband, but how to actually demonstrate it, to make it actionable, to bring it out of her heart into the real world. And also part of the story was every once in a while she would demonstrate love for her husband, in those years between when she was not receptive to when she became receptive. But she told me something I found interesting that's very important, and I'm glad she shared it. She did it, but she had an attitude of resentment. So if you do something nice for somebody to give love, but you resent doing it, will that person, that other soul, pick up on love or pick up on the resentment? I think it's obvious they're certainly not going to, they may not feel the resentment, but they're not going to feel the love. And the whole principle I'm trying to explain, God's principle, it doesn't work if you do something with an attitude of resentment, or you do it just to get something. So this whole idea of giving love first, you do it freely, ideally with no expectations, even though you kind of want love back. If you do it freely just for the joy of it, that's the spirit of this principle. If you do it to get something, you're very clingy with a lot of strings attached. And then if you don't get something right back, you resent it. That's not the spirit of what I'm talking about. So I think that's pretty clear. So I'm really glad she shared that. But this years later in the class, I started mentoring her. She was open and she started asking on the inner, and I gave her some ideas on the outer in class at the retreat. And she started actually demonstrating the love that she's always had for her husband. And even before he responded, which was very quickly, she found joy in her heart. She became happier. And that's the way God has programmed us. So even if his grace doesn't guarantee love will come back, our true nature as a divine child of God is when we truly give love freely with a good attitude for the joy of it, she actually became a much happier person. So even if this principle did not work, and it did, I'll get to that in a moment, she actually was much happier. And she really, I actually can see her on screen right now. They're a beautiful couple. I love them both so much. And it's so nice now, all that love they have in their heart, they both learned how to actually demonstrate it and make it actionable, which makes it so much sweeter when it comes out of the heart and the other person can actually enjoy it and see it and feel it and know it. But very quickly, not only was she much happier and she took a big leap as a spiritual being, she grew tremendously into her true self. Somebody that had love and wanted to freely share it. Really, I think she kind of forgot about the reason she was doing it. She just found joy as a child of God giving love to another. But behind the scenes, of course, she didn't want that affection. And it didn't take long until her husband became very affectionate. He really responded. When he felt that genuine love demonstrated, it was a trigger. We don't have to get into how God works exactly, but it triggered his heart, all that pent up love in his heart that he demonstrated in his own ways, providing and doing other things for his family. It came pouring out. So the two people that loved each other already, that demonstrated love in a certain way, when she gave love freely, and she found the joy of giving love freely, it opened up his heart. That's how God works. That's not for us to figure out. And the love the husband already had, he already had the love. That's why it came back from the person she was hoping it would come back for. But they're a beautiful couple, and I've seen them in class the last few years. And I've always known they loved each other, but you can see it in their how they respond, how they look at each other, the words to each other. It's out in the open now, which is such a blessing for both of them. So the principle of giving God's love first, I wanted to give you an actual example. Again, it came from the person she wanted and in the form she wanted. But I've seen it over the years. It's gone past affection to just general love in all forms. You can't see them sitting at a retreat together without seeing the love just oozing out of them. It was always in there, but now it's out and it's being demonstrated. And it's a beautiful thing for all of us to see, for people to care about them, and for the two of them. So the principle truly works. But again, it doesn't always work. You get love in the exact form from this exact person. But the nice thing here is she started being happier when she was giving love. So say the principle didn't work, but let's say it takes time before God's grace brings love into your life. You're actually a happier, more joyful person when you give love that's in your heart rather than just keeping it bottled up. So that's a nice little bonus there. And if it takes a little while for God's grace to bring love into your life, but you're a happier, more joyful person by giving, blessing others, that can give you something beautiful where you can be patient for a while. Okay? This case is very quick. Okay. So like I've said half a dozen times, this works, not because it's in my book, because I say so, but it's truly the grace of God will guarantee it. His grace will guarantee it. Not if you do it with resentment, not necessarily from the same person, not necessarily as quick as it did in this particular example, not maybe in the form, but if you want love and you're not too picky about how it comes, that you value love for love's sake and not necessarily in a certain box, this absolutely will work. And I want to give you some examples how to give love. And there's infinite ways to give love. And I'll read some here on my card. Do something nice for another. Help someone move into a new home. Take another person's shift at work if they need a break. Do repairs maybe another cannot do. If you have a certain skill set, maybe do something for somebody that they don't have the skill set. Watch someone's pet if they need to go somewhere and leave their pet at home. Show extra respect. We'll get into that in a minute. Can you see showing extra respect or kindness? Is that also another term for giving love? Give me a thumbs up if you see that, because that's the next key we're going to talk about. Give love and give respect and freedom. Pick up your mess in the kitchen. That's mostly to husbands. Put away the peanut butter if you bring it out. Wash off the knife. Put the bread back in the package so it doesn't stale. These are all ways to give love, to demonstrate love. Put stuff back in the refrigerator, and on and on and on. Now, I told this particular person in the retreat when she was receptive years later, I gave her a whole bunch of ideas. And you can just think mentally some ideas how to give love to somebody you wish to give love to. But you can also pray and ask on the inner, if you have a relationship with me as prophet, I can guide you. We have good intercommunication. I can give you all kinds of suggestions. Every day you can ask me. And you'll find joy in that, and it will come back. So that's a nice segue into the next key, spiritual key, my spiritual keys book. The next key is titled Give Respect and Freedom. Before we even get into it, if you give people respect and freedom, can you see it's just another way of saying give them love? It's a specific way to give love. Maybe you don't put away the food back in the fridge, but when you give people respect and freedom, it's a different way of giving love. Can I get a thumbs up if that makes sense again? So this ties in beautifully with the first key. It's important that we do not interfere in people's affairs without their permission. And by not butting in, you're giving them respect and the freedom. When you butt in without their permission, or you try to change their consciousness or their view, or tell them how to live their life, unless they're receptive and invite your opinion, your view in, that's going in the opposite direction. You're not giving them love. You're actually showing them a lack of love. So when you don't give people freedom and respect to run their own lives, and you try to control them or tell them what they should do, could do, they should have done this, why don't you do this, rather than letting them figure out their own life a little bit, unless they ask, you're actually butting in. It's the opposite direction. You're not giving love, you're showing a lack of love, lack of respect, and a lack of giving them the freedom to live their lives. So we want to give respect and give freedom to people, because that would be going in the direction we're asking for, is to give love. And if you give respect and freedom, it will come back. It may come back in the form of love. This first example, the lady wanted an affection, may come back as respect and freedom in other people in our lives. It may come back from the person we show respect for, or it may not come back from that, but it will come back. Love in some form will come back when we give respect and freedom. It's just a common thing. If you're giving a lot of advice to somebody who's not open and receptive, I hope you can see you're wasting your time anyway. They're just waiting for you to be quiet. They're not listening. You're wasting their time and your time, and really not being respectful at all. So the basic principle here, give respect and freedom, is let other souls, other people in your life have the freedom to handle their own affairs. We're down here to grow spiritually, and if they ask for help, that's fine. But give them the freedom, just like I think we all want. We don't want people butting in when we're trying to run our lives. Unless we ask for help, we just assume people kind of leave us alone. And there's another sidebar spiritual principle, not part of today's talk. But if you start butting into other people's business and violating their freedom, you start losing. The divine sets things up where you learn a lesson, kind of building karma in a sense. So if you butt in and you restrict other people's freedom to run their life the way they need to learn to run it, then things start happening in your life where you end up losing some of your freedoms. So that's a sidebar, not a major part of today, but it's almost like if you don't give love, then that comes back to you. When you show lack of respect and lack of freedom, then people start butting into your lives in various ways. So it's almost the opposite principle. When you don't give love, but you give unlove, lack of freedom and respect, you start drawing into your life, I would say, unlove or lack of love. It's not the major point today, but that is something that I thought I'd share with you. For those who've read my keys book, and most of you on Zoom today have, if you know the key cause and effect, talked about that spiritual key, and the key of karma, and you read some of the other keys in the spiritual keys book that we're not going to talk about today, I think you'll understand that people's problems and their challenges and their lessons in life, for the most part, they create them themselves through their decisions and their attitudes and their thoughts. So they're the ones that are best capable, and they're the ones responsible for unraveling some of these problems and things they develop in their own lives. Now that's a view some people might be uncomfortable with, but we're down here to grow spiritually as soul, become more mature spiritually, and frankly, we create most of our own problems. But we also grow and become better, more spiritually mature when we're at least part of the solution, and we dig deep to figure out how to get out of the problems that we ourselves have created. So sometimes just thinking about that will maybe temper your attitude to jump right in and fix people's problems. They created themselves in most cases. It's a lesson they need down here in their own personal syllabus to go home to God. Let them stretch and grow and learn. Now that doesn't mean we can't care for them and root about them. We can wish them well. We can be there, and if they ask for help, we can offer help. But we want to be cautious about butting in. That's the main point. That's not respectful. That's not giving love. And it's certainly not giving them freedom. A subtle type of interference, and this one, you might think you're not butting in or violating somebody's space. So I want to share something that's a little more subtle. When you try to change somebody's opinion, or the way they think about something, or even the way they think about you. that's actually violating their space. But sometimes we want to defend ourselves or try to tell them how they're wrong in their opinion or their view, and we don't realize that is giving them lack of respect and lack of freedom. Now, my job is to change people's consciousness. But that's why people that work with the prophet need to keep inviting me into their heart, showing up at retreats, surrendering the weekend, giving me permission to do so. The reason I didn't help that lady that wanted more affection from her husband, I didn't feel she was open and she didn't give me permission. I don't want to lose my freedom by butting in and taking away your freedom. And no prophet will do that, not consciously, not on purpose. Our freedom is much too important. So don't try to change other people's opinions. Try to get them to believe the way you believe about things, whether it's politics, religion, or whatever. Now, if they're open to discussion, that's beautiful. But don't force it on them. That's a lack of love. And like I said earlier, you're going in the opposite direction. Instead of receiving love into your life, you might have a lack of love come into your life to learn what it feels like to be on that receiving end of lack of freedom. And other ways you can show respect and freedom is simply a kind word, being willing to listen and not talk so much, maybe. There's so many ways. You can pray and contemplate. And if you have a relationship with the prophet, I can give you all kinds of solutions. There's infinite ways to show respect and give freedom, yet still be there for them if they need your help, and still root for them and wish them well. And to find that beautiful balance where we care, we're there for them, but we wait till they're receptive. So I hope that helps. Thumbs up, sound good? So the other key, besides give love first, this is actually very similar. Give respect and freedom. I hope you see it's the same principle stated in a different way. You're giving love giving love by giving respect and freedom to other souls. Okay? And also being there for them when they ask for help. That's also part of it. A little sidebar, this is something I bring up in class a lot. It's also good. A lot of you, when you first came up to the school, you had a lot of you felt unworthy of love. Well, giving love to yourself is bringing love into your life also. So I'm going to read something right out of my Keys book. Give respect and freedom to yourself. In other words, demonstrate love not just to others, but to yourself. If others do not show you respect and honor your boundaries, do not spend time around them. So this may be a surprise, but some of you have love coming into your lives since you were little. You've been very blessed or fortunate. But the area God knows you lack love in your life is loving yourself in a healthy, balanced way. Knowing you're worthy of love. Knowing God created you just the way He wanted, that you're perfect in that sense, that He loves you. So there's a little wrinkle in this whole principle. Maybe God knows you want, say, affection from somebody, but you don't feel worthy of love. Giving respect and freedom to not be around people that don't respect you or show you respect and freedom. Giving love to yourself might be the type of love He knows you need most. That frankly might be the most difficult love for you to allow into your life. And that seems to be pretty common human thing down here, is most people I've taught over the years are pretty good about giving love, but it seems breathing in is a little bit more difficult. But if you can't breathe love in, and even from yourself, it's pretty obvious you don't have as much to give. As a prophet, I need to be able to absorb a tremendous amount of love, which is not often easy. But the more love I can absorb from the Heavenly Father, the more I have to give. It's giving and receiving. So I think this is a nice sidebar. I wasn't going to share it, then I realized it's actually very important. The very love you may need in your life the most right now is self-love, not arrogance, but good self-esteem, knowing you're beautiful and God loves you and you're worthy of love. So if people don't treat you with respect and freedom, maybe you don't want to spend as much time with it. And that would be giving yourself love. And like I said, that might be the very love that God knows you need the most, more than from somebody else. So I hope that was worth sharing today. There's a whole lot to this principle. Everything in Scripture that I've written, in the Holy Scriptures, the Bible, and the other Scripture we use, every prophet through history is really, I guess, if you get to the core, how to receive love, how to give and receive love. That's frankly why we incarnate in the physical body, why we're not living up at the 12th heaven with God. We push down here to become more mature, not quite so self-serving, self-loving, yes, but not self-serving. We're here to learn to give and receive love. And it's become so natural, and yet that innate quality in us as soul is like breathing. It's just who we are. And like the lady in my example, you find great joy, even if it did not come back, in giving. Like Jesus said, it's better to give than receive. I think he was not talking about presents and stuff, probably love. And you might find when you start giving love, you might recognize the love you already have in your life. The problem was you weren't breathing it out. And when you start breathing it out, you might realize you're already blessed with love, but you didn't see it, you didn't recognize it. Or if you start respecting yourself more, where you can accept more love, then you have more love to give. This all is nice, one nice big ball, one big nice ball. Breathe in and breathe out. And it's almost, you can almost say the meaning of life down here. So for those of you with a relationship with prophet, I just want to remind you at home or up at the class, the more you reach out to me on the inner, the more you get permission when you surrender at the school during every retreat, the more at home when you do your prayers, the more you ask prophet to come in your lives, the more I'm there for you, but I don't want to butt in, just like the principle, give respect and freedom. And I'm not willing to lose the freedom I've earned over many lifetimes by restricting your freedom. And it's very similar, if you want a more of a relationship with Heavenly Father, draw nigh to God first and he will draw nigh to you. So those with or would like a relationship with a prophet, either me or future prophets or past prophets, the more you reach out to prophets, it's similar to reach out to God, the more I'm authorized to reach back out to you. So give respect and freedom goes beyond the basic conversation today. For those with a relationship with a prophet, it's fundamental that you keep giving me permission. I'm right there with all of you, but I'm going to be real careful not to butt in unless you ask for help, and then I'm right there. So the third spiritual key that ties beautifully in this package of four, first is give love first, and that's really the principle all the way through. Then it's give respect and freedom, which is the same thing said in a different way. And the next one is gratitude. Gratitude is truly the secret of love. For example, before you fall romantically head over heels in love with somebody, if you really think about it, I bet you appreciated them and were grateful for when they're hanging around, grateful for getting to talk to them, grateful for more time with them, grateful for some of the experiences you had with that person. It started with gratitude, most likely, and appreciation, and then it blooms into love. So we could probably spend weeks on gratitude. It's something, but it's truly the foundation of love, the secret of love. You could say the cornerstone of love. But most good, loving relationships start out, you appreciate it, you're grateful for somebody. You're not annoyed when you're seeing, you're happy, you're grateful for that time. And gratitude is something you can do. Again, not sitting waiting for love to knock on the door, something you can do. You can learn to be grateful. If you're not a naturally grateful person, you can develop an attitude of gratitude. Anybody who has a relationship with Heavenly Father knows that even our very breath is a gift of love from God. If you're not 6 feet under in the morning, you wake up, you got something to be grateful for. But there's another slice to this. Ungrateful people are usually grumpy and not all that much fun to be around. So if you're a grumpy, ungrateful sourpuss, can you see how that would affect love coming into your life? I think it's pretty obvious. People don't want to be around you. They're not drawn to you. Whereas a grateful person is generally happy, not self-absorbed, grateful to the things around them. They look outside of themselves. They see opportunities to interact and give love. They don't just think of themselves. They're outside of themselves. So gratitude has many layers, how it works for bringing love into life. The one layer, in a sense, you're giving out love, a form of love. Gratitude is a form of love. And you have control of that. You can start learning to be grateful. And you can give out that love. And like the first spiritual key, give love first. And the second spiritual key, give respect and freedom. It's simply another way of giving love. What a bonus is, a grateful person is usually happy, well-balanced person, got a little spark in them, a smile on their face. And that in itself will attract people that care about you, are drawn to you. Maybe see the light in you. So a grateful heart, the bottom line here is an abundant heart that abundance equals love. It's a grateful heart. A grateful heart is a loving heart that will attract abundance in the form of love. And while you're waiting for the love to come, you're just a happier person. You're more a balanced person. So the one that's grateful is the one that's blessed. You're also being blessed. You think if you're grateful about what somebody else did, that person's grateful. Let's say you have somebody wait on you at a table at a restaurant, and they did a great job, and you're very grateful, and you might tip them. They're grateful for the income. That's what they're there for. But the gratitude actually opens your heart. It doesn't affect their heart. The tip might be nice for them, but the one that's grateful is the one that's blessed with an open heart. So that's the third thing about being grateful. You're not only giving love, you're a more attractive person and people are drawn to you, you're happier. But it opens your heart. Now, if your heart's more open, what if your lungs are half your lungs are restricted right now? Breathing in and out would be awkward. Pretty scary, frankly. The more lungs are open, and I'm just getting over a chest cold, so I can, where I was congested the last week or so, as my lungs have cleared, I can breathe in and out more freely. I can get more air in and more out. Well, the same principle, a grateful person that has generally a grateful attitude has an open heart. When you're grateful, you're generally not angry, grumpy, fearful, full of guilt. Your heart's generally, at least for a while, very open. And when your heart's open, it makes sense. You can breathe love more freely. If it's open, you can give it more freely and more abundantly. When it's open, you have more room to receive love. And then as you get grumpy and not grateful for part of the day, the heart size closes down a little bit, like the lungs closing down, and the love doesn't come in and out quite as easy. So there's several layers. That's just 3 layers of gratitude, that key. There's so much more to gratitude from the spiritual principle than I think most people would perceive just from the dictionary definition of gratitude. And I think every year as prophet, I learn more about the power of gratitude. then gratitude grows into appreciation. Gratitude, you're grateful, but maybe you don't know the value of a relationship or a gift. Over time, when you appreciate how precious the gift is, or the relationship, or the camaraderie, or the friendship, or whatever, or the affection, when you can start seeing the value of it, gratitude blooms to another level we won't spend much time on. It becomes appreciation. And that's a higher form of gratitude. You're not just grateful, but you can see a value in something. How much more precious. Like those that have a relationship with the prophet of God, at first you just get a lot of good things happening in your life. And after a while, you see the really quite profound blessing, the love of God that you have, and the blessings that you start valuing how precious and how unheard of the blessings are. And that's a deeper relationship with the prophet. Just like when gratitude grows to appreciation, that's a more loving relationship with a person or a job or a pet or whatever, or your health, whatever it is. So it's a higher form of gratitude. But gratitude and appreciation are all forms of love, literally. So how can you become more grateful if you're normally not that grateful? In a skill set that I think virtually, there's always somebody, but virtually everybody on the planet can learn if they want to. It's worth the effort. A simple way is every day write down things you're grateful for. You might have nothing, but you woke up and you weren't 6 feet under. That's a start. If you're a coffee drinker and you had a good cup of coffee, frankly, that's just as good for gratitude as being alive in the morning. It doesn't matter if you got to meet God face to face or had a cup of coffee. And this might surprise the human consciousness. Gratitude is gratitude. If you can meet God face to face and you're grateful, well, that might be a bit of an exception. That might open your heart a little more than a cup of coffee. That's probably the one thing, a bit of a stretch there. I think I overdid that. But basically, gratitude is gratitude. Whether it's something little, somebody brings you a cup of coffee, you're grateful, thank you so much, you're busy and they helped you out. Or something maybe a little bit bigger, health issue, or traffic was good, getting to work, or you got a promotion at work. That's probably more reasonable. If you're grateful, the heart opens. If you're grateful, you're a happier person, and you're more likely people want to be drawn to you, which is bringing love or friendship to you. So probably the simplest way is to get a piece of paper, notebook or something. And if you want to develop it, you gotta do something. Every day write down things you're grateful for. And at first you might struggle. Kind of grumpily write 1 or 2 things down. You didn't get fired, you got to work without an accident. Okay. That's kind of a grumpy gratitude attitude, but it's something. Then over time, you'll start seeing more and more. Now, when we get to the 4th spiritual key, that will open up. You'll start seeing things you won't see normally. The 4th key will tie in beautifully with the first 3. But even with the first 3 keys, if you start writing down things and recognizing and actually accepting and put into your conscious things you're grateful for, you'll see a difference in your life. You'll be happier, and it snowballs. So once you see a few, you go, oh, well, that is also a gift. Oh, I left late, but all the lights were green. Oh, maybe that wasn't a coincidence. Maybe that was a gift. You had a busy day at work, and the person you need to find just walked in your office. You didn't chase them down for 20 minutes. You start seeing all these things you used to think were coincidences, but frankly, blessings of the Heavenly Father guiding you every day. And pretty soon, you almost don't have time to write all down the blessings. By that point, you probably have a pretty good attitude of gratitude. And by that point, you can't wait to recognize them till night. You probably recognize them all day long. And now you're in pretty good shape for that 3rd key, building an attitude of gratitude. Okay? So if nothing else, grateful people are happy people. I think you can all see that from experience. You don't want to be those grumpy sourpusses. just the mere fact you start seeing things you're truly grateful for, it changes your demeanor. You literally look different to people. I see people that are grateful. I can pick it up on just by looking at them. I'm sure other souls pick it up on some level. And I'm more likely to go talk to somebody, to reach out to somebody that's not a grumpy person. So there's at least 3 or 4 levels of gratitude that fits in with bringing love into your life. Okay? So let me see if there's anything else here. I made a note this morning when I was reviewing my notes, and I think I touched on it, but I want to review it. When you start being grateful, maybe learn with a gratitude journal, a lot of times you'll start recognizing love in your life. Not because God's grace is bringing it to you. Love that's already there, that when you were grumpy and ungrateful, you didn't have the eyes to see. So a lot of these 3 principles are, all 3 of these, you may get new love in your life from a new direction, but some of this will be love, so don't be surprised by it, that you'll now see and recognize and more fully accept now that you have an open heart, and more fully appreciate love that was already in your life, but you didn't actually recognize it. So early on, using these 3 principles, and then the 4th, you'll have just all this love coming in. Some will be new by God's grace, but a lot of it will be love that you've already had, people that care about you, and people that show you respect and truly care about you, that you never really fully recognized. So you'll be, early on, you get a lot of this coming back to you. And the person that I mentored in class that wanted affection for her husband, I think if she goes back and reviews the last few years, I think she'll find, and she can tell me at reunion in 2 weeks, I think she'll find love has come not just from her husband, but from other sources that were there that now she more fully accepts and more fully recognizes, of course. So we got this. I'll be a little short on the next one because all of you on Zoom are familiar with it, but it's very important, and it glues all 3 of these first ones together. The next one is singing Hugh, a love song to God. That sound vibration that starts up at the abode of heaven, 10th, 11th, 12th heaven. It's been around since before man was created, before we were sent down to these lower worlds. It's that ultimate sound vibration. Hugh. That Hugh, you study love and gratitude unencumbered by words. What does it have in common with the first few keys? You're sending love first. You're drawing nigh to God. You're sending love to God. Ideally, when you get a little experience, you're not asking for anything in return. Because over the years, God always returns love we don't need to ask. So we can really focus on giving and not worry about getting. He always gives it back. And the principle of give love first is probably the most clearly seen when you sing Hugh, that prayer love song to God. It always comes back. You give love first to God, it comes back. You give love to profit and permission, it comes back. You give love to other souls and freedom and respect, it comes back. So these 4 keys fit together like a glove, like 4 fingers in a glove. But the Hugh ties them all together. It opens your heart. You can breathe in and out love, just like gratitude opens the heart. But this Hugh opens it even more. And maybe for hours after the Hugh, you don't have fear, worry, vanity, guilt, shame, unworthiness issues. So you got that lung capacity as a metaphor, more heart capacity. Now, if you heal a little bit throughout the day, you can keep your capacity to give and receive more fully open. And if, like my students generally Hugh every day, plus throughout the day they nibble and snack on the Hugh and other things they're grateful for, they generally have a great capacity to give and receive love. And part of giving and receiving is recognizing love that's already in your life. That would be a big plus on this that is not obvious. You'll start seeing love, so much love in your life you didn't realize was there in these 4 keys. But the hue glues all of these together. It's like a Powerball in the lottery. It adds a huge plus factor to all 3 of the earlier keys. So you're giving love first to God, love and gratitude. Remember the key, gratitude, giving gratitude to other people. You're drawing nigh to God, drawing close to God. But the big thing I want to point out with the keys, I did a YouTube video a couple of years ago that's really worth watching if this makes sense to you here and you want more. It's called Blocks to Spiritual Growth, Part 1. We even have some little hearts drawn in there, or arrows and stuff, little illustrations. That would be a good review. When the heart's full of fear, worry, unworthiness, you don't feel you're lovable or unworthy love, you have guilt, maybe excessive self-view, guilt, shame, all these types of things, maybe excessive attachments, overly clingy, too entangled in things, too attached to the way certain things are supposed to have an outcome. Those limit the ability to give and receive love. It's like having bronchitis, like I had, where my lungs had less lung power. Remember, giving and receiving love should be like breathing. That's who we are as soul. So we want the maximum lung capacity, or in this case, heart capacity. One of the best ways to push those negative passions of the mind, I think I did a whole page or two, I think it's on page 22 of the Spiritual Keys book. I actually didn't put it in the table of contents, but I wrote a page or two about the negative passions. When you're angry, I think we all know your heart's not very open. Not very loving when you're screaming and shouting and upset. You're full of fear, not a lot of room for love in your heart. You're full of guilt or worry, not a lot of room for love. You're ungrateful, not a lot of room for love, either giving or receiving. And not even very clear on recognizing love that's already there. You're kind of blinded by those passions. So the best way to reduce those, in the video I just shared on YouTube, the one I did a while back, Blocks of Spiritual Growth, Part 1, I can title that Blocks to Love in Your Life. Major blocks to love in your life. Could be just as good a title. So please look at that, go back and find it. It'll make more sense on why the hue is so important. The hue, sing that love song to God, send me love and gratitude, which we talked about the last hour. It not only opens a heart, we have more openness, and it opens a heart precisely because, at least temporarily, and for a while after you sing hue, till you get worked up again, it's pretty hard to sing a love song to God and be angry or fearful or upset about much of anything. It's the most amazing experience. And sometimes that'll last for hours. And during that time, you're more receptive to giving and receiving than probably any other time during the day. And if you hue regularly, you get more lung capacity over the years, weeks and months and years. Plus, if you develop an attitude of gratitude, if you start treating everybody with respect and not trying to tell them how to live their life in freedom, and you try to give love first just for the joy of it, when you add all these up, that's a handful. You take the 4 and you got a whole handful of something that's going to bless you in bringing love into your life, and the joy, the absolute joy of giving love. Frankly, more joyful in my view, and Jesus' view, is to give love. Just like that person, when started giving love to her husband, demonstrated, she was happier than ever, even before he responded. So I felt really excited today when this came to me. It was a gift. I'm not that clever. I believe I was given this gift. That if you want more love in your life, and who doesn't, you got to be an odd biscuit. Not a lot of love, but maybe they're out there. I really feel Spiritual Keys to more abundant life, the Old and New Testament, and other things prophets write, the root of it is to learn to give and receive love. You can't give a whole lot if you don't receive a whole lot. So it's like breathing. And these 4 keys, I don't know if any other, they all fit. The whole book talks about love. God's love, people love, self-love, all that, worthy of love. But I was actually a little surprised when I got ready for the talk, how beautifully, how precisely these 4 particular keys fit for today's discussion. They absolutely will bring love into your life. They will help you recognize love that's already there, and you start having the joy of giving love. And you might find that's more exciting than even receiving. But we want to stay in balance. You got to breathe in and breathe out. And the more you do this, the more you become your true self. As a child of God, this is your innate way of being. So what we're trying to do is not make you with these 4 keys somebody different. We're actually making you more like God made you. The way that you've forgotten about wanting to butt in and bother people, tell them how to run their life, sitting around waiting for them to do something first. So these 4 keys will also help you grow spiritually to be the more true person as a divine child of God that you really are. This will bring back your own divinity. This will be who you really are from a stranger to yourself, frankly. So I hope these 4 keys, you got the book. If you don't, you can get it on my author page. This book, Spiritual Keys, can change your life. If you read it slowly, pray on it, contemplate, take it at the pace I suggest in the book. It will change your life, and it'll be for the better, and it'll be more abundant. Good to see you all. So, thanks for coming. See you in a bit.